this Sunday, in my sermon, I used a story about how William and I first came to be at the lakes. And as Pastor Dean and I were talking about it throughout this week, we just thought it would be really fun to share a fuller picture of that story from both of our perspectives, because obviously we had different perspectives on that happening.
And it's a great story to share.
Yeah. So we're going to have an unscripted conversation about that time frame, and it was quite a long time ago, so forgive us if we struggle around some of the details. But
I remember them exactly. And the way I remember it is the way it happened.
Yeah, so in my sermon I shared that William and I had just finished college, and we were looking for, we'd wanted to go to the mission field and felt like God was calling us that, and some things changed, and we began to look for some ministry positions in the States, and we got a phone call from an old pastor of ours saying that, there might be something for us here at then Shepherd of the Lakes.
And that pastor happens to be a good friend of mine, a local pastor in Waupaca, and he calls me up and he says, hey, Dean, I have 2 people who would love to come and do ministry with you for a year, maybe 2, and as they prepare for the mission field. And I said, absolutely not. We don't have the finances to do that at this time.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but, the same pastor had called us and said, I think you would be a great fit there, especially with Pastor Dean's ministry and leadership style, and you should send your resume. So I'm sure we did that.
Yep, I remember the resume. So I get this resume in the mail, and it was it was very nicely done. I remember that. I was impressed. And I read it, and I thought, at least God might be at work in this. I doubt it. Sorry. But, you just got to go with it. And so I called together a group of people, and we did we decided, they're going to be in town visiting their folks. We might as well set up an interview with them, even though we have no money and we can't do this.
Well, we didn't know that they had no money. We were just excited to have an interview, and we obviously, our families live in town, and so we came up and visited and did the interview. And I remember, thinking that it went well. I felt like we connected well with the interview committee.
I thought it went great.
Yeah, so,
And I was extremely disappointed at the time, thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work ever. This ain't ever happening.
So we went back to Missouri with the promise that we would hear from Pastor Dean within a week. And
didn't happen.
That didn't happen. So it was at least 3 weeks later when we finally got up the gumption to call, and we're like, what's going on here?
I had Margaret Ann, who was at the time, this was a while ago, Margaret Ann Bushweiler was the administrator. And so Margaret Ann, after the first week, she says, well, did you call up that nice young couple? And I'm like, no, I will. I'll get around to it. And we had been praying, consciously praying. There was a prayer group here that had met, and we had prayed. We were praying for God to ask God if this was Him at work, and if He was, we needed Him to come through in some way for us. We didn't quite know how, and her and I were a part of that, and we were praying together. But after the time lapse, it's like it didn't happen, and now Margaret Ann's like, you gotta call them.
So we finally picked up the phone and called, and I can remember, having this conversation, and essentially the answer was, that's not gonna happen, and that's when we found out that there wasn't the funds.
Yeah.
And, of course we were disappointed, and we just sort of just wrote it off and thought, well, that's the end of that. I think Pastor Dean maybe mentioned that there was some possibility, but we figured it was a no-go.
The possibility was somehow God was going to come through. That was the possibility, and I wasn't quite ready to totally end the conversation, because I was thinking, I felt a real chemistry with both you and William, and I thought, they have a heart for ministry. I'd love to see them here. And so I continued to pray, And then I said to Margaret Ann, I will call them on Thursday at 4 p.m. with just the definite, we're totally finished and done. And I think it was on Wednesday of that week that a man came in, a member of the church, a friend, member of the church. He's since passed on to the Lord, and I came in and he said, I have got, and it was a large amount of money. He says, I want to give this for scholarships for college. And I said, that is awesome, that is great, but I want you to read this. And I handed the resume that William and Aimee had given to us. And I said, would you just take that home, read it, pray about it, and would you come back and talk to me tomorrow? And the next, let it go at that. The next day, he came back and came in the office, and he said to me, well, I think we should call these guys up and have them come, but I'm going to have to give more money. As a matter of fact, I would guarantee, if we're going to have them come for 1 year, we just can't have 1 year. He said, I'll guarantee 2 years of a almost livable, at the time, a kind of a livable wage. And God was at work. It was awesome.
Yeah, isn't that a great story? I just think it just shows that God really does work through circumstances. Yeah. And, he's got his hand on our lives, and, we can just get to watch for him, and it's just one of those stories that I love that we ended up here, and we've loved it ever since.
And God is not has not given up on you. He is at work in your life. I invite you to continue to pray, press in, listen to others, like that pastor friend of mine who said you're supposed to be there, and see God working in your life.
Absolutely.